affordable fundraising and the creator of Nonprofit Adventures. Welcome to the show. We are here. We help nonprofit leaders navigate the twists and turns of their organization. And we have definitely taken some twists and turns. We are now on day 36 of quarantine. I think it takes 28 days to build some habits. And so we probably have some good habits going on. I hope they're about staying home. So we have a really great guest today, Rick Dahlseid. He is a CPA, and he's with a PBO Advisory Group. And we're talking today about the tensions between fundraising and finance. I'm really excited. Before we get started there, I want to sort of just share a little bit about our Give Back 2020. I talked about it on the last show. We really, affordable fundraising, we're interested in empowering women and children. The world needs more empowered women. When you empower a woman, she helps her family, the family helps the neighborhood helps the community, and it just benefits the entire world. So we are offering a couple of hours of services. So either some prospect search, we can help you review a grant, or just some general consulting. If you just are like, I don't even know how to go at this, we'd be happy to talk with you. We are accepting applications until May 11th. And so we will include a link once again in the stream. And so if you're serving women and children and need a little bit of help, we're here to help you. Or if you know of organizations or leaders who need some help, please feel free to forward it to them. We are here to help. So now let me tell you a little bit about Rick, our guest today. So he is a CPA, and he's a special guy because he's got a master's in taxation. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, that's awesome. He's a financial expert by trade. He's served as a CFO for nonprofits for many years in the areas of healthcare, human services, faith-based services, conservation, children's initiatives, and affordable housing. He's active with lecturing on nonprofit financial management at the University of San Diego, and he's an instructor for the Nonprofit Academy, which is held in partnership with the City of San Diego and the Nonprofit Institute at University of San Diego. So let me bring him up here and welcome to the show. All right, welcome, Rick.
Hi. Hello, Janeal. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your day.
Yeah, yes. I'm so glad to have you here. So maybe, as we get started, maybe you can just tell a little bit about yourself, beyond what your bio is, and, what has been your journey? How did you get where you are today?
Well, thank you, Janeal. And let me just take a moment and thank you very much for having me, for the work that you're doing with the nonprofit community, and especially with empowering women. I, for one, greatly appreciate that. So, here we are kind of all hunkered down in our day 36 of the quarantine. And, our tensions are high, our nerves are, are frazzled a little bit. And it got me thinking back to some of the experiences I've had in the last 15 years working with nonprofits as a CFO, and how I was able to, very fortunately, partner with wonderful development people all along the way, and just grateful for what I was able to learn from them. So, it's primarily a numbers person, getting to work with really top quality development people helped me to see others' perspectives, and I really appreciate that. And it got me thinking then about, well, because we often hear about the stress and tension in nonprofits between the development department and the finance department. If it was a for-profit organization, it would be between the sales department and the finance department. I once had the opportunity to work with a really nice CFO who worked for our town newspaper, and he would often say that the sales department called him the sales prevention department. And so, not wanting to have a negative connotation with what we're trying to do, I think we're all on the same team. We all have the same goals. How can we work together? And so my mission is to really help the accounting people understand what development people need, based on my experiences, and then also help development people understand what accounting people need. And so that's kind of the basis of our talk today.
Great. Well, tell me a little bit about PBO Advisory Group and what do they provide?
Right. So PBO Advisory Group is a organization that provides outsourced accounting, outsourced human resources. It also provides help to organizations that have compliance issues or just general business advising needs. We've got a staff of about 50 employees here in San Diego, and we serve a bunch of different markets. Some of the markets that we help are the life sciences, breweries, construction, professional services, and I'm fortunate that I get to work in the sector that deals with nonprofits. We service about 30 nonprofits here in San Diego, and that's my sandbox. That's where I get to play. So I'm a fractional CFO. I'll work with different organizations, helping them achieve their financial goals or create new financial management plans. It's really kind of been my life's ambition and what I've been prepared for all along.
Awesome. Yeah. I would say the same thing, only I'm on the fundraising side. And so that's what makes this topic just really fun, because I know exactly what the tensions are that you're talking about. I've seen it. I've had really strong relationships with finance, and then I've seen it where there's kind of like vacuums. There's no connection. And there's some prickly personalities, and it makes it really challenging. So let's just sort of get the issues out on the table here. So what's going on here with the tension between development and finance?
Well, before we jump into kind of what I see as some of the differences, let me just take a step back and talk about where we are on the same page, the things that we do have in common. We're obviously working for the same organization. We're on the same team. And that means we actually have the same mission in mind. Whatever that might be, we are working together. We're rowing the boat in the same direction. We're also very much numbers oriented. Both of us, development and finance, care about the numbers. We obviously want to do a good job. I think everybody gets up in the morning and goes to work thinking, they're going to do the very best that they can. What often happens in nonprofits, and I'm sure our folks on the watching can attest to this, that both of those roles, either development or finance, are often overworked, they're understaffed, and they're often under a lot of pressure with deadlines. Whether it's a development department that's on deadline to meet certain goals, or it's a finance department that's on deadline to get the month closed. But those deadlines, another way to look at those deadlines is their goals. And so both departments are very goal driven. They also prefer unrestricted funds. Everybody loves unrestricted funds, right? So
of course.
For different reasons, but we got that in common. And I would say we both also value encouragement and appreciation for the work that we do. So that kind of sets the backdrop for what we have in common. Those are our strengths, and I love to build from that and work from that. But we do need to be realistic and identify what those differences are. So what I would call kind of the four basic things that I see, first with relationships. Our development friends are very relational. Their whole world revolves around relationships with donors, with funders, with grantors. Accountants, on the other hand, in general, and I'm an accountant, I can speak to this, in my experience, is they're very detail oriented. They're not typically relational. Okay. So if we got accounting folks on watching this right now that disagree with me, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear your story. So what that necessarily means is that
they're an outlier, right?
There are outliers, and so what that means is typically we could label our development friends as extroverts. They love people. They're out with people. And I don't think we can say the same about our accounting friends.
Yeah, we're high energy, and we are about connecting with people. And accounting folks are about precision, and they're methodical. It's very different, very different.
So what if you could have both? Ooh, okay.
Yeah, well, it's about understanding, like you said, it's about understanding what you have in common. And I mean, that's how you build a relationship, right? It's like, what do we have in common here? But then I think that there are different, I think a fundraiser plays a different role than the finance. And I think that the misunderstandings come from just the lack of understanding and empathy about what the other side is experiencing,
Yes, I agree. And, for the most part, because accountants are detailed and they're following rules and principles, that tends to keep them very narrowly focused. And so I think for one thing that would help the relationships is if accountants kind of took a step back and tried to understand that the development department isn't just flying by the seat of their pants, like accountants might think, but they actually have a method to what they're doing and why they're doing it. And so helping each other understand each other's needs is what helps get through these times, because it's all about teamwork and working together. Obviously, there's some very significant pain points between the two. So the biggest pain point that I've come across is really when accountants are focused and using all their accounting jargon, right?
Yeah. Like, I'll just share an example of like an experience. Sometimes it's just understanding what exactly the rules are that you have to follow. So for example, let's talk about pledges. I think pledges we might both agree that they're kind of a pain. But on the fundraising side, I'm very interested in making sure that our donors, that their interests are honored. That when they make that check and they write it and they make it from the heart and they write it for a particular project, that when that money comes in the door, that the finance department is sort of aware of that. And and sometimes the systems are such that the check comes in and development's not told, and so that can be an issue. So I think that that's something that on the fundraising side we care a lot about, is just making sure that we can honor donors' interests. And then if like the money comes in the door and the finance is the first to get it because of kind of some of these rules of like making sure that taking care of the money, that we can acknowledge those gifts immediately, or that we want to know that immediately. And so that sync between the two departments is just really, really important. So to share a little bit more, what are some other pain points?
Well, just to touch on the pledges just for a second, or actually the money coming in the door, whether it's pledges or just checks in the mail or what have you, there's no rule, there's no accounting literature that says that the accountants need to see the money first, okay, or need to be in control of that first. So if you set up good internal controls, which are basically just kind of the rules that everybody follows about how we manage financial resources, there's no reason why the check couldn't come in, be recorded, that the development department sees that first, and then that information then flows to the accounting department and on up. So that's where I think these kind of hard-pressed rules that are based on draconian measures, maybe, or because that's the way we've always done it, needs to be blown up, and let's think of a good solution here. So some other pain points that come up is like, well, that's not GAAP, right? You hear that?
GAAP.
Well, what is GAAP? And so that's,
I know enough to be dangerous. I know general accounting, applied accounting principles, right? Did I get right?
Generally accepted accounting principles. Yeah. And
I know enough to be dangerous. And I don't know if I've seen the book, but I hear about it a lot.
And I'm not advocating that we throw the generally accepted accounting principles out the window. I'm saying that let's consider other ways to do things where everybody gets what they want.
Yes, yeah, no, but I think that, I guess as on the fundraising side as a leader, I also want to understand that, I mean, that's where the rules come from. That's where they emanate from. And the person in finance is looking for accuracy and precision. And, I think that, and understanding that is, I think, on the fundraiser side, it's like you got to have a little bit of, you got to cut people a little bit of slack and try to seek first to understand where they're coming from. And I think that when you think about it, like the separation of duties and these controls are about keeping the organization healthy. And that is, that's your role. My role is to bring the money in, and you're making sure it's taken care of. And so I think it's, mutually beneficial.
Absolutely. And I guess what I'm trying to drive at here is, whether the accountant knows it or not, the reason that they have accounting principles and the reason that they're following these rules is really so that they can prepare financial statements that show the reader a fairly presented financial picture. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about all the information, financial information that comes into an organization into one big bucket, then it's the accountant's job to kind of sort through that, put it in the right categories and treat it the right way, so that they can eventually produce a report that they're going to give to the board, the leadership and the board. That's all great and wonderful. But this big bucket that they're in charge of has a lot of information in it. And some of that information can be used by the development department without any harm to the financial integrity of the organization. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned pledges a while ago, and that's a great example that I like to use, where you get a phone call, the development director gets a phone call from their favorite donor that says, hey, I love the work that you guys have been doing. I'm going to send you a check for $10,000. And then hangs up the phone, right? And so you, the development director, you're all excited. You go to your little, place where you keep information, Salesforce or whatever you're recording, however you're tracking that, and you're putting that in. Okay, we're getting $10,000, right? Woohoo, right? And then you go share your excitement with the finance person, and they're like, well, is it in writing? No, they called me on the phone. We're not recording it. What? $10,000? What, are you crazy?
Yeah, right.
It's got to be, generally accepted accounting principles dictate that it must be in writing, it must be signed, right? And so, while that is true and correct, that doesn't mean you can't produce a report that shows $10,000 is coming in the door. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's really about the language you use. So as we're doing grants, I mean, you submit the proposal, it becomes pending, and then it might take 3 to 6 months to get a decision, and then I guess I know what you're talking about, because as a fundraiser, when they say yes, when you get the email and it says, hey, you got the money, you're like, yeah, baby, you totally celebrate then. But then you got to get the check in the door, right. And so, and sometimes as a fundraiser, we have to, do some things to, get it through the door. And so this is where your tracking systems have to be really great. But you're, as a finance person, you are not going to attribute that to the financials until that check comes in the door. Right. Yeah. And so the other thing I found is in fundraising is that there's, like, you guys are, like, the financial statements, like, that stuff's, maybe I shouldn't use this word, it's already baked. It's done. I mean, it's like, past.
I have an accounting term for you that I can throw out.
Okay.
We don't use baked. We will use the word accrual. And so we have accrued for the revenue that has been earned, maybe not received, but earned. Okay, that's accrued.
And so that would be like a pledge, right?
Like a pledge, exactly.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
And the other thing I know about pledges, as on the fundraising side, that sometimes fundraisers don't get, is that if you get a $200,000 pledge, you have to book that in the year it was received, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And so So then you have to say you got that $200,000 all in that 1 year. So then me, the fundraiser, it's great to see that pledge payment come in the next year, but it doesn't necessarily go to our goal. That's all that, that's the drawback there.
And that's partly
it's all good.
where
it's $200,000.
And that might be too where the executive director needs to have the ability to kind of go back and forth and understand both sides, right? So accountants are operating in an accrual basis, and I think the development department mentality is more of a cash basis. So when the money hits, we're showing it versus when it's being earned, and so there's those differences. Another pain point comes up with compliance issues, right? So in fundraising, we might have events, and there might be a silent auction, a live auction, things of material value sold, paintings, wine, and sales tax becomes an issue as we're dealing with those things.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it doesn't, it's amazing how many people you can talk to that have events and say, well, what, you having a silent auction? Okay, what are you auctioning? Oh, well, we're doing a 50-50 raffle. We're going to give, we're going to collect money from everybody and give half of it away. It's like, oh, time out. In California, they call that gambling, and guess what? That's illegal unless you're a certain type of organization, which most people aren't. So, I mean, there's these issues around compliance that come into play, and so that's another place where development departments can lean on the experience of finance departments to talk about, we're thinking about doing this and this. Can we do that? And if you get no, then you want to say, well, how could we do it? Well, we've never done that before. Well, help me figure out a way to do it. And that's where you get the partnership, right? You get the partnership between development and finance. And as long as you can develop a good relationship, you can usually build a good partnership.
Yeah, the other thing, as you mentioned it just briefly, is that I just want to say is that sometimes the conflicts are like the leader, the CEO, the executive director really needs to set clear expectations. I mean, we all are adults, and we should play nicely with each other in the sandbox. But sometimes there's different personalities that rub the wrong way. And I think the leader, the CEO and executive director can really help alleviate some of that by just setting really clear expectations and helping to just sort of help, find that understanding of the differences between. So I think that that's an important element here too. So
as we start to kind of wrap this up, let me just finish off with kind of what the finance department needs from development, and then I'll say what the development department needs from finance, and maybe you could add in some things too. So what the finance department needs from the development department is early communication. As much as possible, accounting is an estimating lagging indicator.
Yes.
Information is lagging. So the sooner you get information and communication to the finance department, the better. And then accurate and consistent data too. So if you're using a CRM system where you're recording your information on donors, Blackbaud, yeah. I work with Blackboard and teaching in Blackbaud.
Yeah. Razor's Edge, yeah. Yes, Razor's Edge. Yeah.
So we had a project a few years back at the hospice that I worked at where our CEO spent months and months pouring through the data in the records and looking at all the Jane Does, and there was 15 of them, and eliminating them and linking them to the right people. And so having pure data is and that data integrity is hugely important. And then timelines, knowing when things are due and sticking to those deadlines is hugely important. Back to raffles again, it's okay to have certain types of raffles in California. Make sure you've got them registered with the Attorney General. Pledge valuations is another one. Looking at your pledges on an annual basis that carry over year to year to evaluate those. And then finally, I think what we all need is encouragement and appreciation. So that's what the finance department needs from development. I think what the development, from my experience, needs from finance is meaningful reports. right? They want timely, accurate, relevant. They need metrics, and the people that have access to all that information is the finance department. Development wants a partner in the mission. The finance department has all the financial information. They need a good partner to get reports out. And just like the finance department, the development department wants encouragement and appreciation. So Janeal, do you have some other things from your experience that you think are necessary?
Yeah, I thought about just on the government side, on contract compliance, the finance, like we write the grant and the money, the commitment comes in, it's a 3-year commitment, and oftentimes the work has just begun if it's government money. And so, the finance department's charged with really the, drawing down the funds for reimbursement. So they really are doing the heavy lifting once it's awarded. And so just understanding what some of those compliance issues are, because those are, especially on the government side, I guess it's really about the donor. I mean, we're all about knowing what the donor wants and what their interests are and what their pain points are and how they align with the mission. And so that's really what we care about most. I like to say that there's the program managers and they care for the clients, and if we're a program manager too, and our client is the donors, and so we're there to advocate for them. And so I think that you're right, the finance department does have a fair amount of information that can be very helpful, and we don't know all the rules, and there is some information that would be helpful for us just to understand some of those things, because I've worked with nonprofit leaders and they don't sort of understand, the restricted, unrestricted, and then there's the temporarily restricted and the permanently restricted, and there's all kinds of terms that are thrown around.
And now we have brand new terms for all that too, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay, gosh.
Yeah, and so, I think what's essential in order to have a good relationship is, I'm going to say this to my development friends and my accounting friends. And as far as these relationships are, go first. You be the one to step out of your comfort zone and go seek them, have a cup of coffee, do a Zoom happy hour, something. And then have patience. This won't be fixed overnight. It didn't get to this way overnight. So just be patient with that. And then by all means, celebrate the wins, because you're going to have lots of wins, more to celebrate than to lament over. So those are the essentials, I think.
Yeah, and I think that I think the only other thing I would add is that in fundraising too, in order to build it's about relationships. And if you're going to have a relationship, it takes communication. And there's got to be consistent communication and connection between, finance and fundraising in order to sort of root out some of these issues, to find that shared common ground together. And and I think that if you can find harmony there, everything runs so much smoother, and it's just makes for a much better workplace too. So, all right. Well, thank you, Rick. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today?
So, lately what our organization's been doing is helping a lot of organizations, nonprofits included, with the payroll protection loan program. And many nonprofits, thankfully, have been funded. There's another bunch of money that's coming out, probably be approved tomorrow. And so those organizations that are already in the queue, that have filled out applications for the payroll protection loan, please contact your bank. Let them know you're still interested. You want to make sure that happens. I'm actually doing a webinar tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And if you want to go to our PBO Advisory website, it's pboadvisory.com. I'll say that one more time, pboadvisory.com, and look at the Insights tab, which has PBO News, and you can register for that.
We can go ahead and grab a link and put it in the feed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we could do that. That sounds good. Great. And then if folks wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. If you would like to reach out to me, I'll give you my email address. It's rick@pboadvisory.com. rick@pboadvisory.com. My phone number is 858-935-4855.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you, Rick, for spending some time with me today. It's been great. I love this topic. And it's great. It's great working with you. So, well, thanks for being on the show.
Okay.
And we'll see you. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.
Okay. All right. Okay. So just to wrap it up here. So this month is National Volunteer Month. And so just a reminder to you need to show some love to your volunteers. And so in that spirit, our next show I'm really excited about will be May 5th at 4 o'clock. And we will be having Alexis Brown Brotherton from Volunteers of America, Utah. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And we will be discussing how to build relationships and engage your volunteers. So I'm really excited to have her on the show. She's got just a ton of experience working with volunteers, and I'm excited for that. And once again, just a plug for our Give Back 2020. Please send in your applications and let us help you find some clarity that you need in this, strange time of, 36 days of quarantine. So thanks, and we'll see you next time.